What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Shot Quality Bets podcast. I'm your host, Justin Perri, and today we're going to be talking about the Shot Quality Bets model. If you've heard of Shot Quality Bets, you have probably heard of the model. How we use it is really to power everything you see. All of the tools, all of our projections really come from, this, well, I guess we're sort of talking about a couple different things, but we're going to get into all of that today. And that's kind of the point. I will be joined today by Big 3 for 3, who is a key contributor to making the Shot Quality Bets projection model. We're going to talk about how you can best use it. And then, of course, really going through what the process is on the site to get a play and then to make it in order to just so that anybody coming in who might be new to the site is just really understanding the process, sort of what really happens behind the scenes. And then, of course, taking advantage of it to the best of your ability. And then last, we'll do some tips and tricks, just, when to play, how to understand line movement. And if anybody on Twitter, on YouTube has any comments, definitely just tag us and we will get to it at the end of the show. Or if you just come in onto the YouTube and say what's up, we will we'll answer your questions right away. So I'm really excited to be here today. This is a big show because the Shot Quality Bets model is essentially our bread and butter. It's our favorite thing to talk about because it's our plays. It's where we get our bets from. It's where we grade our ability to essentially beat Vegas. And while we have a lot of other really great tools, a lot of people at the end of the day want to talk about what we're projecting, what the score is going to be, how Shot Quality Bets can be so accurate. We're going to get into all of that. So one of the big things that usually happens first in terms of Shot Quality Bets and how this model works is really just understanding where it kind of comes from. So Shot Quality is a computer vision and AI company at its heart that ingests video and uses our computer vision algorithms to understand the position of every single basketball player on the court, how they're moving, how tall they are, and then, using our own understanding of how good every player is at basketball, sort of going in and saying, okay, well, this player can shoot from this position on the court well and this shot type well versus, this player maybe is a little bit more mediocre, average, bad, whatever it might be. We have an individual understanding of every single player, and combined with our unique ability to know like the nuts and bolts of where the players are on the floor, the X's and O's, I guess is probably a better term. But it's really what happens is we're able to just come up with our own expected percentages for every single shot. How often something's going to go through the hoop is really pretty important when you're grading how impactful a shot is and how valuable it is at the end of the day. So shot quality is an evaluation tool. And then the Shot Quality Bets model takes that team data, that player data, and uses it to create a projection for every team. And we're going to get into some of the specifics of how that's done when we bring in Big 3. But what you need to know is that it has been super successful in beating Vegas, right? Like we had a really great year last year, over 5,000 plays processed. And while that might sound like a lot, what it really sounds like to me is a lot of validity. And we won at 53.8% against the spread on totals. So that's a really nice return. It came out to something like 140 units. So really, really proud of that. I mean, again, it's just, we like to call it a weighted coin. And I'm sure when Big 3 gets here, he'll use that term as well. It's just going to beat Vegas on a random sampling. And we'll get into some of the nuts and the bolts again, X's and O's. I don't really know. We'll get into sort of how all that works when I bring my esteemed guest on. But let's talk a little bit about the process for Shot Quality Bets and what happens when you get onto the website. So you can see the homepage here. We'll bring it a little bit more full screen. If you're joining us in a podcast form, we do have this on YouTube. You can go and listen in and see what I was doing as I talk through this process. So we're not going to directly go into my email per se, but the cool thing about Shot Quality Bets and the convenient thing about Shot Quality Bets is that every morning and night, we email out our plays to our subscribers, to our members, whatever you want to call them. If you have a membership to Shot Quality Bets, 10 p.m. and 10 a.m. Eastern, you get an email. And that email will have the lines that are indicated here as a play. Those are our plays. These are plays that have a point of value difference between the line and our expectation of at least 4 points for spreads and 5 points for totals. It's our point of value threshold. And then we show all of that here on this daily projections page. So you can come to the daily projections page, you can see what's going on, but then you also get this email twice a day. And those emailed picks at the 10 a.m. and 10 p.m., those are the plays that we are saying we are officially, quote unquote, locking in, right? They're not necessarily locks, but we're placing them, right? This is what we're being graded on. 10 a.m., 10 p.m. The plays on the site at those hours represent both like a good ability for us to get on openers and to play, some of the games that maybe are going to open later in the day where the lines maybe aren't available at 10 p.m., but some of the extra games, smaller schools usually find themselves on that portion of the card at most sports books, and they usually open up the day of. So we want to make sure to be able to hit those, but also give you the best chance to beat the model. Beat the market is what the goal is here, because beating the market and getting the best number is the truest sign of success when you're betting, because long term it's going to essentially provide those extra cents that can up your ROI, be the difference between a win and a loss, that 1.5 point. And we saw it last night. I had a Central Connecticut bet at plus 12. And, that was the only number. 11.5 won too. But, if you didn't get the right number, you can lose. Getting to the market quick, betting early is going to be one of the most successful practices you can have in college basketball. And here at ShotQuality Bets, we're definitely pushing the idea that you should do that. All of the top bettors, all the contributors here at the site do use early opener lines to get the most out of their edges. And that's what we want to do here too. So again, 10 a.m., 10 p.m., overnights at 10 p.m., day of 10 a.m., you get the emails. And then the new thing this year, because all of that was available last year, if you remember, probably understood that. But the new thing this year is the pending plays. At the bottom of the projections, you saw me scroll down if you're here with us. You scroll to the bottom of the daily projections page for whichever league you're looking at. We now take those emails played, those emails sent, and we store the plays on them, and we put them on the site, and we lock it in. So you can see the line at the time of play. So if you're confused, if you come here and you say, oh, well, I see that like UNC Asheville is up here, and that's a play tonight for ShotQuality Bets, but you can't find it here anymore. It's not a play. Well, that's because the line's 10.5. And that means there's only 2.1 points of value. But when we sent it out at 10 p.m. last night, the line was 12.5. And that meant that we liked it because we project the game to be 77 to 68.7. So that's just a little bit of like a way for us to have it on the site so that at any time you can come and see the line at the time of the play versus where it is now. And obviously they will all be plays because they are pending plays. But that works for both spreads. And of course, you can go to the totals to see how the totals are looking, maybe get a little sneak peek if you're hanging with us now of some of the plays out here today. This Creighton, Florida A&M game had it as an over, and then you can come see, well, is it still there? And the answer is no. We've lost, the market has moved in on all of that value. And actually, we're on the under now. So we have 0.5 point on the under. So it has gone all the way up to like 140. We played the over at 134.5. So if you got that email last night, you got really great value. You could literally go in there and play a middle on almost 6 points. That's the power of the ShotQuality Bets model. We do beat the line a lot. It's really honestly impressive. It's what drives a lot of the value here. It's what builds trust, because sometimes you're going to lose those plays. But the thing is that you had the better number. Like you could have like essentially taken value out of the market. And that's a little bit more of an advanced concept when you're betting, but like middling, hedging, all that type of stuff. When you beat the market, you can kind of, I guess, get your value out of it is the right term. But anyway, why do we do this is kind of important. People bet at different times. People bet at different books. Like it is hard. Not everybody has the same offerings. If there was there would be like one generic book. The idea is that sports books can compete, set lines, try to entice business, and that gives you as a bettor an advantage. So you want to use that to your advantage, but you also need to understand that means everybody can be seeing different stuff. Some people don't play at a lot of different books. Some people only have access to one or two, depending on their state. Shout out, I think Florida got Hard Rock Cafe's app back today, a little culture reference in the betting world. But no, it's going to be a little bit difficult to nail down just one line. So our site is malleable. You can set the book that you want to look at. You can come into this thing literally at the top. You can choose any of these sports books to understand the major, I guess, ones out there. And of course, you can do the math yourself if you don't see a line. But FanDuel, DraftKings, MGM, Caesars, all there. See the major providers, consensus lines, points bets, and then even a calculated best line so that you can shop essentially naturally on the site, which is honestly pretty awesome. But what it means, though, is that this site can be there for whatever line you need to tell you if it's a play or not. And now, pending plays, emails going out, so you know what shot quality is going to be graded on, because the next day, it always shows up on the results page, right? So we grade every play we have. We put everything out there. You can sort of see, if you're a premium member, like, of course, I am, you can see the shot quality score to understand, well, what did shot quality expect? Closing line, actual line, final score, everything's there pretty well. These are spreads. Oh, that's cool. I was having some trouble with math in my brain. But anyway, pretty interesting tools that we've built here. I'm going to bring in one of the people who essentially started this whole project, who was the first person to really come in and work with ShotQuality to create a model using their data to power projections. That's going to be Big 3 for 3, who has co-hosted this podcast with me for a long time, was here last year. If you don't know that he's the guy behind the model, well, maybe now you understand why he's been up here with me this whole time. Also a really sharp gambler. Big 3, excited to sort of answer some questions, maybe get your opinion on how to best use this thing. But welcome on in, bud. How you doing?
Appreciate it. Yeah, no, I am excited to talk about this. I think this is probably the most common question that we get, at ShotQuality Bets, is just like, what do I play? When does it consider to play? Should I still play it if it moves? Things like that. So happy to kind of come clarify that with you. And I think it's just important. Anyone that's going to use this tool, like, you should understand what you're using, right? And I mean, like, we can tout our record all we want, but if you don't even understand where that record's coming from, or how you can achieve that record, it's not going to do anyone any good. So
I'm literally tweeting right now. I'm on my phone. I'm tweeting from the ShotQuality Bets account. It's going to come on the ShotQuality Bets Twitter that we are streaming live from. If you guys have any questions, please reply to this tweet, and we will answer them, because I want to get everything out there. And so Big 3, something that I think I want to just address immediately, because honestly, we take a lot of questions. We have a whole Discord community. People are always asking, and I'm actually just going to pull up the Discord, and I'm going to go through some of the things that people have asked me on the Discord. And something that we were talking about a little bit today, maybe even inadvertently, so is I guess looking into splits, how points of value work, if there's a better subset of plays to take, because the volume approach that this model has is not for everyone. It is more of a weighted coin than necessarily power picks, 1 a day, 2 a day. It's high volume. So, what I responded with was, sure, could I tell you that favorites with 7 points of value last year, won at a 60% rate? Yeah, I can. That is true on this model. And I don't even know if you're aware of that, because it doesn't really matter, right? And why doesn't it matter? Because 63 plays is a tiny sample size. And, if I sit there and just hammer home to everybody that it's, 7 points of value on favorites, going to win 6 of 10 of those, the variance and the variability, I guess is the better word for basketball, the luck, it's just not predictive, right? So we don't narrow in on saying, it's good on this team, it's good on that team. We zoom out more than we like to zoom in. So can you talk a little bit about why, and maybe some fundamentals that I didn't even cover about the model?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the biggest things I think is, anyone who bet college basketball last year remembers the insane run of overs, right? At one point last year, there was a month where it seemed like 80% of games hit on overs. And honestly, it wasn't 80%, but it was, I think, 60% for almost a month span. And we had users of the site resort to only betting our overs. And of course, what happened the last couple months of the seasons, unders hit at a ridiculous rate. And we crawled out of this massive hole that unders had dug us into the first few months, and unders still finished the season positive. But if you had switched to only betting overs because, this sample size of the last month, overs are hitting at this percent, you would have had a losing last couple months of the season if you had stopped betting the under. So it's really important, I think, to just realize that even over 100 game sample size, a model that's really good and hits at 54% could go 40 and 60, right? And so like you like trying to pick apart and find like little subsets of what works best and what doesn't work best, even with the 2 full seasons of data we have, like is going to be really hard to find a significant enough sample to actually be able to pull that out. Now, what I do think is there's objective reasons to like a game, right? Like, okay, a good example is our model seemingly these first couple games is going to like a lot of big underdogs this year, right? Like there's good examples with Eastern Illinois who won yesterday and then or covered, and then like a Tennessee Tech, right? A Tennessee Tech who lost by 38, and so I think, and you see it again with Mount St. Mary's tonight. And so like, maybe that's something that you aren't comfortable betting. Like, that's fine. Like I hate betting on these terrible teams. It always comes down to what does the second unit do? I think that's totally fine, especially if you're trying to get some of the, I don't know, just like you want to play less things, right? Like that's a reasonable thing. Or maybe you hate playing unders of like 126. We had a couple ugly unders last, like Seton Hall under 120. Like maybe you don't like playing it. You don't want to cheer for brick after brick. And so like I think that's a really good way to kind of eliminate some things. Like, and ultimately we wouldn't give out plays if they weren't winning, right? Like it doesn't matter if it's a plus 28 underdog or a minus 17 favorite. Like all of these have been back tested and proven that they are going to win over the long term. And that's why we give them out on the site. Right. So I think that you picking and finding subsets of plays that you like is totally fine. The other thing I think is what I like to do is I go through and I look at like, hey, I think I like this spot for this team. Hey, I like this team up to this number. Like I do some of that stuff on my own before even looking at shot quality. Right. And then what you're able to do is you're able to go and see like, where does shot quality align kind of with what I think. So I think those are a couple good ways to kind of narrow out some of the sample size, but honestly, you can't really go wrong. Maybe you like to watch the games. And if you want to just like, I'm going to pick one at 6 o'clock and one at 8 o'clock and one at 10 o'clock, like that's fine. But just know over short term, you might go 0-3 on that day. Right. And the model might win, but over the course of the season, a lot of that stuff is going to level out, I think. So
I agree. I think that's exactly the benefit of shot quality, right? Is to be able to sit there and understand that things do kind of tend to trend towards the mean. It's just the way it ends up working, and not just the mean in terms of like production, but the expected mean, right? The process based mean, the mean that we are able to derive from using those player locations to understand how valuable a shot is. We've proven that that is more accurate and more correlated to future performance than actual efficiency data, than what happens in the box score, right? Because you're going to get over performances, you're going to get under performances. And so it takes a long time for that to sort of middle in to where a team or a player actually is, while shot quality doesn't necessarily overreact to a 10 of 10 shooting night, right? We don't know. Shot quality doesn't really know if the ball went through the hoop. It does in a sense of it knows how good a player is at producing points in that place. But like the shot itself that is being graded in that minute, in that moment, it's the shot quality value is independent of if it goes through the hoop. And I think that's pretty cool because over time, that means you still get points for misses and you get less than actual for makes, right? There's a very few 100% shots in basketball, especially college basketball. We've actually gotten some fun commentary about like dunks not being 100. They're not in college. Kids miss dunks. So, and some kids miss less than others, and shot quality understands that, but there's no 100% shot. So even if you go up for a 95, 97% dunk, over time, you might miss 3 of 100, and shot quality does account for that. It might seem minute and maybe a little too minute, but at the end of the day, like that's what's going to build into a more accurate representation. And obviously on shots like threes and mid-range and like, I guess fadeaways from the elbow, that's where you start to really see the impact of grading the process, the openness, and I guess the shot making ability versus luck of some of these players. So we do have a question. You ready for a question, Big Three?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah. All right. So this is a question we get a lot. 5,000 plays last year. It's a lot, and likely too many for 99% of bettors. It's true. It's too many for basically 50% of the people here. Big three is a little bit of a savage, to put it lightly. But yeah, is there any way to filter out the results to see what the percent of success was for spreads of 8 points of value or 10 points of value? I think that's a really good question. Is there a way to filter it out? I believe if you go to the results page, if you are a member, you can download graded plays. So yes, you can filter it out. It's not necessarily on the site, but we do offer graded play data to our members, so that you can sort of see how good we were at certain levels. And I did mention it very quickly in Big Three. I'll get your opinion on it, but like the correlation between points of value and winning percentage here isn't necessarily linear, right?
Correct. It's not at all, honestly. Like if it was, so this is the thing is this model is trained directionally, and it's also like we don't bring it back to the market at all, right? So a lot of the reasons that some of these other models are closer, like you might see, people playing a 1 point edge, is they're bringing it back to the market. We are kind of independent here a little bit, and we are trying to just pick up on directional differences. And there is no difference. I'm telling you, because I was the one who built this model. I promise you, there being 11 points of value. And obviously this changes like as lines move a little bit, but there being 11 points of value and there being 4 points of value has the same or very similar win rate over sample size of thousands. And I think that this is a common misconception. And ultimately, sometimes the reason that you're getting 11 points of value is because there's like a player injury or like a late announcement of a player being out that like you don't even, so like you honestly might be playing worse games if you're only playing the ones with 11 points of value than 4 points. And not to say that I still don't endorse those plays, like I obviously do, sure. But if you really want a way of like narrowing it down, we've talked about a couple already, like finding maybe a conference that like pretty well and betting those ones for sure, but I think a good way to do it is if a game is nationally televised or between like two ranked teams, like if you're trying to narrow it down, don't bet those ones, honestly. Like those are the ones where the market's going to be more accurate. And I think what Shot Quality is really, really good at is conceptualizing how good is Central Connecticut? How good is, Farley Dickinson? Like these schools that nobody's watching, right? Like this is Shot Quality. We call it all the time. It's like quantifying the eye test. Like nobody's watching these schools. And that's where Shot Quality is going to have a huge edge, right? Like everyone's watching, Michigan State against James Madison, right? Like while we might have our eye test, like that's going to be baked into the market more so than how did Central Connecticut do in the first game, right? So if you're really trying to think of how, well, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, of course, if you're trying to think of how am I going to narrow it down, or maybe like where might this be sharper than the market, I think like my first step, if I was trying to narrow down plays, is anytime that there was a ranked team or like two Power 5 teams playing, I would just like, all right, I'm going to go to the lower market ones instead. I think that's one way to narrow it down. Once again, I still fully endorse the plays that are, between two ranked teams even, but I just think that you're more likely to find big edges and discrepancies from the market on some of those low major games. So.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of really important stuff. And look, I actually, I'm the one who's in charge of a lot of monitoring these models. And I can tell you right now, we're going to be doing a lot of content telling you how they're doing. We're going to come out, we're going to have a model review. We're going to talk about our best bets. We're going to be showing you where the models have been hitting. And maybe you're someone who likes, you see, this is very akin to almost a little bit like roulette-ish. Like you see red hitting a lot. Maybe you like playing on red. Maybe you like playing on black when you see that. I mean, there is some type of luck involved. And we saw that, and I can feel comfortable saying that here in front of you all because I ran an audit on this model for last year's performance. And again, the win rates at the different points of value did not move linearly, right? So I have it in front of me here. If you were looking at the favorites, when this model told you to bet a favorite, right? 7 points of value, like I said, 60.3% win rate, 63 plays. But the problem is it's so small that like, okay, now you go to 8+ and you're at 58.5, 41%. So 41 plays, not 41%, 58%. Still really good win rate. But like, you start keying in on these little strips or bands of plays, looking at 50, 100 plays out of 5,000. you lose the plot a little bit. And the real benefit of this thing is that when you zoom out, like, and you kind of close your eyes almost and take a random sampling, more than almost trying to use the human element. I honestly like to use this thing in two ways. I will either shut up and just look at it and know that if I play it, I'm going to profit long term, or I will use it to support my own conclusions that I've made independently. I don't think that middle ground where you go in and you try to hand pick the best plays out of there is worthwhile. I fully believe that essentially ruins the whole edge, because you're adding in that human element, and you're just, you're probably bringing it right back down into like the unprofitable range, because you're at best like 50-50, and probably, overthinking it and being like, oh, this pick because of this, like, I think like where the real benefit is understanding like this thing is just going to be a good betting machine. So maybe we need to dive into power conferences. Maybe that's something cool we can do for our first model review. And maybe this thing is a beast in the mid majors and the low majors. I wouldn't be surprised, because you're right, because this is, and I was just talking to someone, Coleman Crawley, who has come on the podcast, friend of the show. Awesome guy, goes and chases Cinderellas around the country. Go check him out if you don't. Really great content. But we were talking with him, or I was talking with him on Twitter, and I was saying, like power 6, power 5s, whatever you want to call them, like you don't have the information advantage anymore, or you might, but it's just so much less often. And like, I know when I go and I bet on the MAC, and I bet on Niagara, and I bet on Siena, and I bet on Holy Cross, like those are teams in my locale that I know the program, and I've seen them play before. Like this is, and then on top of that, I have shot quality. Like already, like I feel good in my battle against knowing more about these teams than I do about USC. You think I know more about USC? No, I don't. There's somebody out there who works for a sports book who has unparalleled access to information on USC that would just take me too much time to really get into. And then on top of that, the market is just so efficient because of the volume. Like, so you have to factor in so much, right? So these lower bet, even if they're lower limit, like that's really where you can make your mark, and really find your edge.
The last thing I want to say here is whatever volume you're playing currently, unless like Justin's a weird case, because this is his life, is like digging into these games, and I mean, it's some people's, but for a lot of you, if you're not playing a ton of volume, it's probably not enough, and that's not here to say like, oh, you need to play every single play, but you have a tool at your fingertips where you're like, okay, at volume, it's going to hit at a good percent, right? And over the course of the season, if you only play 200 plays from this model, like maybe 2 a day, you're doing yourself a disservice. Like you are not, you're just like, you're not giving yourself or taking full advantage of what you have, right? Because over a 200 game sample size, you might lose, even if you do the best possible way and you pick out the best, like you still might lose. And so I think like playing smaller units and spreading it out a little more is not a terrible idea. The other comment I want to make is for those of you that are new to this model, yesterday is an anomaly, right? 113 games in one day is insane. And it happens every Saturday, but outside of that, I mean, look at this right here. These are our recommended plays on sides for the next 2 days. And there's 6 of them. Right. So it's like, it's not like there's this insane amount of volume and you have to play 35 plays each day, like there's 7 tonight, and like splitting up a couple units, if you're typically only play 2 against, on 7 plays, like probably not a terrible idea. And what's not going to happen is you're not going to go 100% and make all your money back. I think that's one of the problems sometimes with us gambling is like, you want to play super low volume. So you have the possibility of like, I win everything, but ultimately over the course of a season, it's just never going to happen. And you're never going to do that, 2-0 every single day. And so I think like ultimately, and once again, it doesn't mean I'm not telling you play every single play, but even just like, okay, I'm going to go half the unit size and just play double what I typically do. I think with a tool like this at your disposal, and it's more than just the predictions, right? Like there's so much built into the site now with trend finder, matchup stuff. Like you can really dig into and handicap these games with shot quality data beyond just this tool. And so I think just spending a little more time splitting units in half and playing twice the volume, you will see big differences. And at volume last year, the last 2 years, this model's done really well. Like I'm very confident that you'll win over time. And I think the last thing I want to say here is, like, Justin scrolled down to the bottom with the totals on the pending plays. You're on sides right now, but these are the 4 totals that we played last night. One of them moved 5 points in our favor. One of them only moved half a point in our favor. One of them moved 4.5 in our favor. The other one moved 4.5 in our, like, we're on the right side of this game. Right. So it's like, I think that ultimately, are you going to be upset about splitting up to, like, I don't know anything about these teams. I don't want to play 4 games overnight. Like, if you bet those last night, like, you're feeling pretty good about where you're sitting today, regardless.
I don't know how you play Big Three, and I know a lot of people think it's kind of silly, but like, you could theoretically middle and sit there and hope for your 4 or 5 point middles. And at your worst, if you miss all of them, you lose 0.4 units. And if you hit all of them, you could be up 8, right? Like, you play or you can hedge, right? You could play an alt, you could take a plus money line. And I think that I think the math ends up working out. The alt lines end up being worse. But you could theoretically, live bet, right? If it starts going the way we expect, it's going to become more and more lucrative for you. The total is going to continue to move. You can get a larger middle. Like, you can really get a lot of value out of here just by beating the books this badly. And I mean, 4 points on 3 out of 4 totals is impressive work, especially because there's not another 8 of them that got no movement or moved against. Like, all of them moved in the right direction. And you're going to see it all season. And look, we do understand the idea that on a Saturday, on a big day with 100 games, that you don't want to go put down 36 bets. I get it. You might not even want to put down 36, even 36 half, 36 thirds, Big Three. Like, some people don't want to do that. So, like, you'd have to go to like quarter units to get this thing down to 8, and 8 might be too big for half people. So what are you going to do? An eighth? You're not. You're just not. We're betting on sports here. Like, people like to just sort of be consistent. And sort of the process of how to use this thing, I think, becomes really important. And we do hear that. And we are currently developing a new system to help totally reduce the number of plays. And we actually are building a brand new model that is hopefully very soon to be released, that will sort of combine to limit plays and increase profitability. We're going to have a new sort of view on our best bets, and you'll be seeing that hopefully within the next week or so. Right now, we're just running the one model. We've been working on this simulation model for a long time. You've probably heard about it. We're really excited about it. But like everything at Shot Quality, we want to get it right. We want to deliver an awesome product rather than being unsure at all. So we're making sure to get it right. That will make sure to reduce plays for people who, maybe want 400 plays across a season instead of 4,000. And again, a random sampling of games. Maybe you only play the openers is a way to reduce plays. You don't play those late nights, or those early mornings. Maybe you don't play the big schools. Maybe you play the small schools. Maybe you use it as a way to agree with yourself. I mean, again, the idea with Shot Quality Bets is it's really a tools environment where you can handicap the game through this process of understanding the model, through understanding the evaluative process of Shot Quality's expected data, using the trend finder. We have awesome game previews that every member gets on this matchup simulator. You just go in here and you can select any team in college basketball, and I'll just randomly choose Appalachian Alcorn, and like within seconds you get this flurry of data still on 2023 for the team stats, because not every team has played yet. But this is how we would project the game. And in 3 seconds, you can start to understand, okay, here's how these teams looked. I can start to, understand that, all right, well, here's the frequency at how often this Alcorn team, ran the half court versus, actually got in transition. And, they shoot mid-range at the 60-second highest clip, and it's 23% of their possessions. And how's Appalachian going to defend it? Well, they're actually pretty bad at defending the mid-range. So maybe this is a game that Alcorn can win, and now you're looking at the projected spread versus the actual, and it's multiple factors, right? It's about developing an ability to use the tools in tandem, and then that's if you don't want to just take a random sampling, choose your own subset, wait for best bets. There's a lot of cool ways to do it, but I think what we started this off with and where we'll end it, because we have actually kind of rolled over a little long, and that's totally fine. I wanted to answer questions, which I'll check if we have some on Twitter before we go. But, really about understanding how to take advantage of the way we send out the plays. Releasing the data is really important because at some point might be difficult to get down on some of these plays over time. So we send them out again, 10 a.m., 10 p.m. is when the lines lock in. We send an email at that time. This is the Shot Quality Bets process. We send an email, 10 a.m., 10 p.m. You get those lines. Those are the lines that will show up on the graded plays the next day. So if you're looking for only plays that Shot Quality is going to be fully graded on, only select from the pending plays. And maybe if you miss the boat on a pending play, you don't play it. Maybe that's how you reduce. You only get lines that the model's graded on. I know a lot of people out there want to make sure that they're sort of aligned with the model. Maybe it means you miss some plays, but if you use the pending plays, if you use the email sent out, which has all of the plays, you'll be able to make sure that you and the Shot Quality Bets model are being graded on the same numbers. So that's a really important process. And then, of course, the next one is that if you aren't maybe available at 10 and 10, or maybe you get none of the lines and you still want to play something, anytime you go to that daily projections for whatever league it might be, and you see that play, that means it's still within the threshold that the model would recommend. Sometimes the market will move against and a play or a line will become a play. Sometimes a line will stop being a play. Whatever is at that moment available, the daily projections upcoming games section will essentially do the math and tell you what's in the range. Official plays, you only want those right here. But yeah, we have a really nice system worked out for you to understand the difference between what's available right now and what will officially be graded as a shot quality play. This model is really powerful. There's not a lot of models that you could put out there for 5,000 plays and win. That's difficult. You have to beat the juice over and over and over again. And the work that Big Three has done, the work that this entire team has done to create these evaluative processes, to essentially build this model from the ground up to be able to predict shot quality scores and then accurately beat Vegas and beat the market early in the season, because we are more predictive and this data is essentially the best in college basketball. Hey, look, there's a reason we're here. There's a reason shot quality is becoming a bigger and bigger part of just everyday basketball conversation. It's because this is the most predictive data in the sport, and we're really excited to bring it to you. We're really excited to continue to refine it, make it better. If you have any questions, leave them here. Give us a DM, put them on the YouTube, tweet at us. We're very responsive, try to get back very quickly. You can even go to the site and hit this little thing and type in, and then either me or someone else from the company is going to shoot your DM back. We want you to ask us questions to help you understand what makes shot quality so powerful and how it can give you an edge to win. Big Three, my man. Always a pleasure. Yeah, you got one? Anything else?
I just want to add one thing as right before we kick off here. Yeah. We are being as transparent in this process as possible. And I think the thing is that us only locking in plays at 10 p.m. and 10 a.m. We're going to show a worse percentage than you could really get. And I think and the other thing is we track consensus line, if you're getting the best line, and if you're locked, I've already locked in my plays for tomorrow, and I think that's the difference between people who are really sharp and people, who are still looking at plays that start in an hour or two, and I think ultimately the biggest takeaway from this is look as early as possible. And even shot quality's percentage, you can beat what we're grading on model, I'm sure. So go do your own research, use the tools on the site. And I think ultimately, if you're betting, you should be betting now. If you're on the site, most limits, unless you're betting more than $500 a game, you should be able to bet any of the plays now already for tomorrow. So I think just doing it early, getting ahead of line moves, beating the lines, at least doing it by the time that we send out that nightly email. And you're going to be in good shape for sure.
Yeah. Look, what Big Three is saying is really true. There's a chance, right? Look, so there's a couple plays here. This play moves a 1.5. This goes down to 12.5. We're off of it. That could happen in the next 5 hours, right? That 10 p.m. is a recently installed way to get, some level of openers. And as Big Three said, if you aren't over, the standard limit, which is 500, and even then you can probably bet it a couple times sometimes at some of these books, or maybe have multiple outs, you can even outperform what we're grading. We try to grade as fairly as possible because we don't want to be super stringent and say, oh, well, we placed the Drake bet at 4:30 the night before. Most people don't bet that way. we try to keep it as fair as possible to what, the average bettor can do and will do. So that's nighttime, it's morning time, it's locking it in twice a day. But that also means you can come here and you can get ahead of the people who are getting ahead. That's the benefit of hanging out with us here in the chat. That's the benefit of listening to guys like Big Three, who have made really just powerful betting tools that are helping hundreds of people win more in college basketball. Really excited about everything we have coming out for you. If you have any questions about this process, about how ShotQualityBets plays get out to users, to members, emails, pending plays, daily lines, whatever it might be. Again, you can find me at Justin Perri 8 at ShotQualityBets. He's Big 3 for 3. And we're really excited to just have another awesome college basketball season in front of us. If you saw, we did go 19-17 last night. So not the worst start. Profit is always something to be happy about. So we will see you next time. We'll continue to discuss the model, how it's used, the data behind it, the processes that you can use on this ShotQualityBets suite of tools. And hopefully all go into the promised land of profit together. We will see you soon. We got some really great plays up. Go sign up now, get free picks on the front of the site. Really just honestly the next level of college basketball data. So thank you so much for hanging out. I'm going to bring the music back in, and we will